Order the City of Cottonwood Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting of Monday, October 16th, 2021, in the City Council Chairman. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Chairman Garrison?
Present.
Chairman Commissioner DeSisto?
Present.
Commissioner Kling?
Present.
Commissioner Romeo? Absent. Vice Chair Maston?
Present.
And Chair Williams.
Present. Thank you very much. Our second item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of our special meeting on July 26, 2021. Do I see any additions, deletions, or changes that need to be made?
No.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion, Vice Chair, please, for approval.
I move to recommend approval of the special meeting minutes from Monday, July 26, 2021. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Garrison seconds the Vice Chairman's motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Aye.
Okay, and Commissioner Kling, you're an aye too?
I think so.
Yes, okay. You folks that are on with us virtually, if you'll mute your microphones when you're not talking, it will help so we can keep from background noise, would be good. Our next item on our agenda is informational reports and updates by our director, Mr. Ellis. Would you like to give us a brief summary, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission. Good evening. I've only got a couple things. As Mr. Corbin mentioned a few minutes ago, mark your calendars for September 14th to do a joint work session with the City Council to possibly get a presentation on an upcoming project. We're also looking at having a joint work session with the Historic Preservation Commission, possibly in September, maybe October. We'll send out some dates to both commissions, find out what works. That'll be to look at discussing design review in the historic area. And as mentioned, also do have one open seat on the commission. You know, if anybody that is interested in filling that, they do have to be a resident of the city. And that is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is call to the public, and this is the time for the public to comment on any matter that does not appear on our agenda tonight. If you'd like to come up, we can discuss that briefly. Do I have anybody who would like to address anything not on the agenda? All right, thank you. On to old business, which we have none. And our first item of new business is Design Review 21006, a design review for a recreational vehicle park on Happy Jack Way and the south side of Mingus Avenue. Mr. Davis, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commission members near and far, I'm Gary Davis with Community Development. This is a proposal for design review approval for an RV park. This had been agendized previously as a conditional use permit. Since that time, we've had some discussions with the applicant and believe that it is all going to fall into the RV park use. All the vehicles in there would satisfy the definition, our definition of RV. So that's a C1 and C2 use, and in our zoning ordinance, all C2 and C1 conditional and permitted uses are all permitted uses in the I2 zone. So that is a use that is permitted outright. RV park is conditional in C1 and C2, so it is permitted in I2. However, design review does apply here because a design review is required for the exterior portions of all sites, buildings, structures, and signs to be built within the city. Proposed is a total 450 to 500 spaces of an RV park. Applicant proposes 150 in the first phase. They proposed 3 access points. One would be an emergency access, and we'll get to the site plan in a minute. Zoning ordinance section 409 will apply. That's the new RV and manufactured home park chapter that came through the Planning Commission last year to clarify standards for RV parks and manufactured home parks. All those standards would be applied. Here's a map of the site. The site is a 37-acre portion of a 49-acre parcel that's just to the west of Happy Jack Way. Just to the north and east of it is the airport. You can see the runway here. To the north and west is our Public Works and Utilities Complex, as well as our transfer station and our Humane Society. Just west of that is the Mesquite Hills subdivision, the first units of Mesquite Hills. To the south is AR 43 land that is potentially residential property in the future. This is a blow up of those 37 acres. This shows the perimeter of the proposed RV park. Down in the south portion, that outlined area is what's proposed for phase 1. Along the north is Mingus Avenue. The access on Happy Jack, the existing paved road, goes down as far as the existing mini storage and storage of the RVs. Currently, this is used for storage of RVs. The applicant proposes to later on move the stored RVs that are in this area behind the mini storage to a site that's to the southeast. That's not a part of this application. That's just a heads up on what the proposal is for the existing storage business. Applicant proposes extending the pavement on Happy Jack Way south to their new entrance, which would be in this location. That would be the main entrance to not only phase 1, but future phases as well. The applicant proposes keeping the access to Happy Jack through the existing access to the mini storage and storage facility driveway. And they also propose up in the northwest corner an emergency access onto Mingus Avenue. We do have requirements for RV parks that are more than 100 units, and the phase 1 would be 150 units, that there be a secondary access attached to that. So we've got a stipulation that we're proposing that would require one of these accesses to be completed as part of phase 1. This is a sketch of the entryway at the entrance on Happy Jack Way. This would be the new entrance. You see a sketch for landscaping on the northwest corner and, sorry, the southwest corner that would be. And the northwest corner would be a recycled water feature. The applicant is here to discuss any questions you might have about these plans. This is a schematic for a typical RV space, and you'll note there's a parking space for standard vehicles in the front, which is part of our parking requirements, as well as the RV pad towards the rear. About half of each space would be dedicated to open space. Our code in 409 does require 800 square feet of open space per unit. In addition, and that can be included in a community open space as well as individual, as long as it's open space and can be enjoyed by the public, which is our definition of open space, then it counts. So this site plan does meet our requirements for open space. It meets our requirements for access as well, as I mentioned before. This is a sectional drawing of how the wash that goes through the property would be would be treated. And in the wash would be a community open space fire pit feature. Some photos. This is the existing entrance to the mini storage and RV storage. The mini storage would be separate from this RV park use. That's part of the parcel that isn't included in the RV park. This is looking north on Happy Jack Way from that location. And this is looking south from that location, from the current entrance, looking onto where the paved road, Happy Jack Way, transitions into currently a dirt road. Again, that's proposed to be paved by the applicant down to the new entrance. This is about the location of the new entrance looking north. You can see there's already some landscaping established along there. I believe this would be about where the entrance would come in here towards the southeast corner of the property. You can see the very south end of the mini storage in that location. This is looking east on Mingus from about the northwest corner of the property. Again, the property to the right is the subject property, which would be future phases of the RV park. To the left across the street is the City Public Works complex. This is same location looking back west. Again, left side of the picture is the property, future phases of the RV park, and to the right would be our Public Works and Humane Society areas. Our proposed stipulations should be in conformance with the development plan you see here as submitted for this meeting. The project shall conform to all the code review comments, shall comply with zoning ordinance section 409, as I mentioned, the rules on RV parks, as well as fire department, airport, and FAA requirements. This is close enough to the airport that there will be some FAA requirements. We do have the airport director here to answer any questions you might have about involvement of the airport or FAA. Phase 1, as I mentioned, should include emergency access to one of those two secondary access points I showed earlier to the north of the site. Certificate of zoning compliance documenting completion shall be issued within 24 months of this action. And that concludes the stipulations and my staff report. We do have the applicant in attendance to answer any questions you might have. I can answer any questions you might have of staff at this point.
Yeah. One question for me. The design review is for the entire park, not just phase 1. They're
Yeah.
going to develop phase 1, but the design review is for the overall project. So we're going to be coming back for the other phases.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. It'll be for the entire site. As the plans change and evolve for the future phases, they can come back to our code review process where staff can look over the technical details, all the requirements of 409 and our other sections of the code to make sure that they're in compliance with all our requirements.
Okay. What about the street paving? There's some questions on that, what's proposed and...
Yes, our code does require pavement that meets the standards of our fire department and our city engineer specifically, but our fire department also does have compaction requirements for surfacing of roads. Our zoning ordinance does allow some flexibility for types of roadway. It doesn't all have to be paved. If it's not paved, it does need to be something that's signed off by staff, and that's a requirement of our code review comments as well. So
Right.
as you approve any condition that would require adherence to the code review comments, all those code review comments are, by extension, required by the Planning Commission as
Right.
well.
So we don't have to get down to the real nitty-gritty.
That's what staff is for the technical issues.
All right, real good. I'm fine. Commissioner Garrison, you have any questions of
No, sir.
Gary? Commissioner Kleen, do you have any questions of Gary?
No, sir, I think I'm good.
Okay. Commissioner DeSisto, do you have any questions of Gary?
I guess this question would be for the FAA commissioner. I'm just wondering about how close the structures or the RVs are going to be to the runway at the airport. Are there, distance requirements that have been met?
Yes, sir. Your name, please.
Mr. Chairman, Commission, Mark Williams, Airport Manager. This is part of the 100-year lease. There's about 63 years left on the lease. There are a couple requirements from the FAA. One of them will be a notice of construction, which is a Form 7460, and then we'll have to do a category exemption for NEPA. Other than that, the structures are not close enough to the runway and to have any issues. The only thing that may be required is lighting, depending on the elevation, and that'll come back on the 7460 from the FAA.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner DeSisto?
Yes, it does. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Real fine. Vice Chair, any questions?
No questions for Mr. Davis.
Okay. I don't either at this point. Mr. Bongini, are you here to represent you are the applicant?
I am Chairman Mike Mongini, represent Cottonwood Springs Happy Jack Lodge. I want to thank the Chairman of the Commission for moving this forward to give us the opportunity to build this RV park. We see that Verde Ranch down there by Camp Verde. They opened the same time we opened our, we call Sedona Springs, which is south of here. And that looked like a pretty fierce competitor. I was shocked at their absorption rate. A lot of people like to come to the Verde Valley, and I guess you guys noticed it down at the freeway, how they filled up. We think it's much better to be here in the Cottonwood area. We think Cottonwood's entertainment district has a lot to offer to these RVers in the close proximity. So we thank you for allowing this to go forward. Chairman, you made a question about this is for the entire project, but we will come back for significant structures that we're going to be building. We will build a clubhouse eventually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's going to be up there on Mingus Avenue, and it'll be a piece that's very, very nice, but we'll bring that to you at a later date. Right now, our target is to start a mass excavation, and Gary, do you have a pointer I can borrow? It's this area right here. This is part of the airport use area, and we're going to be starting the excavation here. We have a separate agreement with the city we got years ago to allow us to remove the material, basically draw a line from here all the way over, remove this material. And what we're going to do is do an excavation. This is a big fill, and we're going to be removing material from this area over here.
Okay.
So they'll be able to get more hangars in this area. I think that's the purpose, right, Mark? Correct, yeah. Is the idea to get some more hangars here. So we'll move what's on this side of the security fence, and once it's moved, then we'll relocate the security fence. So that's part of our first phase in this aspect. Once the RV park is up and going, we plan to come back and show you some solar through this area. And there'll be canopied solar, kind of what you see down at Camp Verde. Mm-hmm. But we're going to put canopies for the RV parks underneath that generate the solar for the RV park.
Oh.
So that's our plan. You talk the long-range plan. That's where we got. I don't think it's that far down the road. If Camp Verde filled up, these 150 units will go very fast, and we'll be right in here to put the solar up.
Right.
And have covered RV storage in that area. But again, we got this area. It's about I think 175,000 yards or something that have to be moved out. So it's not going to happen in our first phase, I assure you. But we do plan to remove material in this area. Let me see. We are going to use reclaimed water for all our irrigation system. And I know that we currently have a storage tank in this area here that tries to backfeed water along here, because sometimes we don't have water in the pipe system when our drip system comes on. So we built a storage over here for reclaimed water, and it backfeeds into our drip system. Our meter's right about here for the reclaimed water. And we're probably going to come back, because we did talk to utilities, and there's no way, it's just where we're located. They don't have water that's on, use the word all the time, for an irrigation system. So we will come back with a tank probably located at this area. It'll be significant looking size tank, but we'll paint it like a wine barrel. We'll have grapes growing on it, stuff like, painted on it. But we'll want to make it look nice, but we'll probably have, that'll be up in this area. It will be the water fills up when the city has our water system on for this side of Mingus Avenue, and we'll be able to fill it. And then our water system is operation all the time. When the automatic system comes on, they have water. That's the only wrinkle on this project that I think with the fire department we can work things out. I think with your city engineer, the design and stuff of this, I think all the conditions that the staff put on this, I think it's all workable.
You can work that out with the various departments.
Yep.
And so forth.
Yep.
Good. No, that's good to hear. Anything else, sir?
That's all.
Okay.
You have any questions?
Commissioner Garrison, any questions of the applicant?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Kling, do you have any questions of Mr. Mangini?
No, thank you.
Commissioner DeSisto, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Vice Chair?
I do. Thank you for coming in and talking about your project. First, regarding the open spaces next to each spot for each RV, you have a note here that says something along the lines of each individual RV owner will sort of set their own space. Will any of the drip irrigation that you're talking about be going to those spaces? Because I see in the drawing it's green, but obviously that will be dependent on watering.
Correct. Every site will have drip water system to it.
That's good.
If not, the vegetation won't survive.
Yeah. The next is you've got a masonry wall going along, and one of the things that staff pointed out is that to the southwest of the property in the future, that could be housing. What can you describe, since this is a design review, the detail of that wall? Do you guys know what kind of masonry? Is it going to be CMU? What color?
Well, the first phase, because this is AR zone, it'll require us in the first phase to build this segment. This area down here is industrial, so we don't have to build a wall along the industrial boundary. So right now this is the first phase. We'll have to build this wall. It's 1,500 feet long, and it'll be a masonry product. So is it just that you don't have the detail for what that'll be? Masonry product's pretty broad. I can give you the detail. We had purchased for constructing the social hall and their art gallery for the Catholic Church and office. We bought about 150 semi-loads from a block company called Navajo Flexcrete. That's a lot of block.
Yes.
And the reason is it's just an affordable thing. The company's going out of business, and we bought it at surplus prices. We're storing it right now, right about where our park is. We thought that was going to be our last phase. It by chance has to be the first. Just figure we thought too much about it. We'll probably use some of that block. We'll have plenty to build the facilities for the church. But that's probably going to use. Now the CMU has, for example, a 4-hour fire rating if you grout it solid. This has an 8-hour fire rating. It's pretty much indestructible type material. And
Thank
it goes
you.
up easy. Yeah.
That's where I was going with that.
Yeah.
Right. Good.
That's all for me.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Davis.
Commissioners, Gary Davis again. The site plan that was submitted that's shown here does show the CMU wall both on the west side and a portion of the south side.
Right.
It's labeled on the south there as well.
Right.
So we'll need to clarify that at some point. I believe the actual zoning to the west, on the west line, is the AR 43. To the south, it's mixed.
That's right. Wherever the AR 43 is, we're going to put a wall.
Okay.
I agree with Gary.
Yeah.
Somewhere down in this lower.
Yeah, there's just a little corner there.
Yeah. It may come this direction.
Yeah, a little bit.
Something.
Right.
I'm sorry.
No, sir.
There's the map that shows the zoning on it right now. That just comes down to the corner, the AR 43.
Very fine.
Whatever that AR 43 is, we'll put the wall up.
Right. And Happy Jack is going to be extended. Does it go down to the new entrance?
Correct.
Yeah, it's already
And it-
there. It's
And the
in
condition of the
place.
road will be the same as the current standard.
Right, right. And that's a public street, as I understand it?
That's correct.
Yes, yeah, right. Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Will, and the stipulations we provided don't cause you any problems if
No.
we do make a motion to approve? All right.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commission.
All right, I don't have any slips from anybody. Would anybody from the public want to address us on this project? Mr. Grosetta, please. All right, would you give us your name, please?
Andy Grosetta, 625 South Mount Mingus Road here in Cottonwood. We're the neighbor to the southwest of the project there, and it adds value to the area, and we fully support what Mr. Mangini's doing with that. So he's relocating where the RV storage is now and putting in an RV park in that area. So I think that's a major improvement to the neighborhood. And there's going to be a wall there, so it's someday that property of ours will probably be developed and probably be a residential community sometime. So we'll address that whenever that happens.
Right.
But we're in support of the project.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close the floor to the public. Commissioner Garrison, your comments.
I have none. Looks like a good project.
Okay. Commissioner Kling, your comments, ma'am, please.
You know, I was initially a little reluctant about the location, safety-wise regarding the airport, but after reading through it, I'm pretty comfortable, and I feel like they're, well experienced in this sort of thing, and a good source of resources, so I'm all for it.
Good. Commissioner DeSisto, your comments, sir.
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Sounds good to me.
Okay. Madam Vice Chairman?
I think it's a good project, given the wall. I think that it's more space and tourism that we need, and I am looking forward to seeing it built up.
Yes, I would second that. It's definitely a project we need to have. I've been watching all those down at Camp Verde saying, gee, why aren't we doing something in Cottonwood? And this makes a good transition from the airport, for development with the airport noise and so forth. I think this would be very good. I'm sure it'll be well received, and look forward to seeing it being developed. Vice Chair, I would entertain a motion, please.
I move to approve DR 21-006 for an RV park at 420 South Happy Jack Way, subject to the following stipulations. 1, the project shall be developed in conformance with the development plans as submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission at the August 16, 2021 meeting. 2, the project shall conform to Code Review Board comments dated August 4, 2021, and any additional Code Review Board comments. 3, the project shall comply with Zoning Ordinance Section 409 and all building, engineering, and fire department, airport, and FAA requirements. 4, Phase 1 of the project shall include an emergency egress roadway connecting to at least one of the secondary access points shown on the site plan, built to current fire department standards. 5, a certificate of zoning compliance documenting the completion of conditions shall be issued within 24 months of the Planning Commission actions.
Do I have a second to the Vice Chair's motion?
Second.
Commissioner Garrison seconds the Vice Chairman's motion. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Garrison,
Aye.
Commissioner DeSisto,
Aye.
Commissioner Kling,
Aye.
Vice Chair Maston,
Aye.
and Chairman Williams.
Aye, unanimously carried. Good luck, Mr. Bongini. We look forward to it, sir. Very good. Our next item on the agenda is the PP 21001, which is the preliminary plat approval for the Vineyards at Cottonwood Phase 3. Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is a preliminary plat application for the Vineyards at Cottonwood Phase 3. We just saw Phase 2 not too long ago. Just to give you a rundown of the subdivision process, first they meet with staff at a preliminary meeting with a sketch, and then the preliminary plat is the next step. Staff reviews it. We get 20 working days minimum, goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and then goes to the City Council. Planning and Zoning Commission ensures the plans are in compliance with the requirements. From there, once they've got a final plat ready to go, staff reviews it. Then it goes to the City Council. It does not go to the Planning and Zoning Commission at the final stage. And then it gets recorded and it shows up on the county maps. This is a location of the Vineyards at Cottonwood Phase 3. You see the purple being the zoning for PAD, various PADs around that area. This being in the middle of it on the south side of Grosseto Ranch Road, just east of State Route 89A. This is the original plant area for the vineyards. The southern portion of that, the southern 45 acres, has been transferred to another ownership just south of this phase. Grosseto Ranch Road is proposed to go through all the way from State Route 89A to Main Street, and that is required as a part of this whole development. What's been agreed to as part of this Phase 3 is that the road would be completed to the eastern edge of Phase 3, along with the completion of the roads inside the plat for Phase 3. Also, concurrent with the processing of Phase 3 onto the final plat process would be for the applicant to provide us with financial assurances, design, right-of-way for this section going from there east to Main Street to connect it all the way through.
On your stipulation, make sure it adds financial.
This is the original master development plan for the vineyards, and originally Phase 1 was proposed here, and that's where it took place. That's about 41 units. Phase 2 was originally supposed to go on both sides of that. However, the last plat you saw for Phase 2 placed Phase 2 just to the east of Phase 1 on the south side of Grosseto Ranch Road. Now to the east of there is this Phase 3 proposal, again along the south side of Grosseto Ranch Road. This is the plat itself, showing 29 lots on a little over 6 acres. Access is not off of Grosseto Ranch Road directly, which would be a neighborhood collector later on, but instead from Sangria Drive, which is completed up till about this point, with Phase 2 infrastructure being in construction. Proposed stipulations, this is where I talked about the road. Developer will provide Cottonwood with an acceptable assurance that all required improvements will be completed prior to approval of and recording of a final plat. Financial assurances for the Phase 3 infrastructure shall include assurances for the extension of Grosseto Ranch Road eastward to the Vineyards boundary property. Also required prior to approval of final plat is the right-of-way acquisition and city approval of road design and engineer's estimates for the extension of Grosseto Ranch Road all the way to Main Street, as I showed.
Gary, may I
Yes.
interrupt you? Also, as part of that first stipulation, as you quoted in your staff report, there needs to be financial assurances for the completion of that extension down to, at this point in place, down to Main Street, in addition to the infrastructure for number 3.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chairman. That does square with what we had placed in our staff report, and that would get added on here. Also required prior to approval, the last sentence of that first stipulation would be, before right-of-way, we would say the financial assurances.
Right.
So the maker of the motion can add financial assurances, comma, right-of-way acquisition and city approval.
Okay.
And then the rest of the conditions are very standard conditions that we require of all plats. They adhere to Code Review Board comments, that it must include all the required information as found in our subdivision ordinance, that any comments generated from review of future submittals, including the final plat, shall be adhered to prior to approval and recording of the final plat. Road widths shall be in compliance with our standards. Corner lots shall be at least 10% wider than typical interior lots. And the reason for that is we have wider setbacks against, on corner lots against side streets. And then the developer shall adhere to all applicable requirements outlined in our master development plan that was dated August 6, 2016, and also any subsequent agreements between the developers and the city. And again, that would cover the issues in phase 1, in condition 1. So that concludes staff's presentation on this 29-lot subdivision. If you have any questions of me, I'm here, and we also have the applicant, a representative of the applicant in the audience, who can answer questions on it as well.
Okay. Commissioner Garrison, any questions?
Yes, sir.
Gary.
Can you go back to the map? I keep looking at this one, and you're doing everything on this one, and it's a little hard to catch up sometimes. You go quite fast. So where exactly is the road going to be taken, Grosseto Ranch Road specifically, as this is built, this phase is built?
It would be to the eastern boundary of the plat, I believe, would be the construction, and the applicant might have some information on that as well.
Right. The other, yeah, we'll get to him. Okay.
Because, yeah, I mean, and why I'm asking is it doesn't appear that there's any access to this phase from Grosseto Ranch Road once you pass what they're calling Sangria. So I'm curious, that was why I was asking. And then the next question, I guess, is at what point, I remember when this came through council and there was a lot of concern about the amount of density that was going to be added to this area above on the greens, and everything going to that one single access point. And there was a condition put on as an approval for this entire site plan that Grosseto Ranch Road would get taken all the way down to Main Street sooner than later. And I'm kind of wondering at what point is it really going to get built? Because all you're saying is they're going to create an easement and create a mechanism for future funding, but I'm not hearing anything about building a road.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Garrison, the trigger for actual physical completion of this road is the 100th unit. So completion or approval of development of the 100th unit in this development here would trigger the completion to Main Street to allow the secondary access onto Main Street. What's required with this plat, the phase 3, is just the assurances and the design that gets built.
So how many units do we have at phase 3 completion?
This brings us up, I believe it's in the staff report, but it brings us into the low 90s, 92. So the next phase, we're assuming, would cross that threshold of 100 units.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Garrison, I'd like to add to that. Gary is correct, that 100th unit, but there's also an end date as well. It's December 31st of 2023. Whichever happens first, whether it's the 100th unit or that date, that road should be built out to Main Street.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, because that's kind of what I was remembering, was there was also a time limit imposed on that. Thank you.
A date certain on that. Commissioner Kling, any questions of Gary?
No, I appreciate the clarification about the road. This is all intrinsic knowledge I didn't know about. So, that helps me understand the inlets and outlets as well. Thank you.
Commissioner DeSisto? Any questions of Gary?
No questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Vice Chair, any questions of Gary?
Not at this time.
No. And in answer to Commissioner Garrison's question about access to Grosseto Road, they're going to come through Phase 2, so there won't be any direct access on this. These particular lots will all back up to Grosseto Road, and they'll use this other street coming in from Phase 2 to go into the lots for this particular unit, as I say it.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Right. Very fine. Okay, I don't have any other technical. Mine was just about the financial assurances for the design and acquisition of the easements to proceed at this point for the future development of Grosseto Road. Okay. So what do we have here this evening? I see a familiar face. Yes, sir. Your name for the record, please.
Kishan Ginige, SCC, the design engineer. Chairman Williams, commissioners, it's good to see you again. And I think Gary did a wonderful job of explaining the projects, so I don't know whether there's much I can add to that. If I were to just step back and talk about a little bit about Phase 3, and obviously I'm sure you want to talk about Grosseto Ranch Road also. As far as Phase 3 is concerned, it is a continuation of what we had proposed on Phase 2. So very similar in nature, lot sizes, road arrangement, as well as utilities. As far as drainage is concerned, there is an existing major drainage to the south, and that is where the natural flow would have flown to. That would be the same place where we are directing the drainage, and obviously we will use the City of Cottonwood drainage guidelines as well as all the other designs. Grosseto Ranch Road right now is under 90% design. I've just circulated the 90% design, and so I believe we'll be completing the final designs pretty soon. I want to say within month to month and a half, which we already have a schedule which we have outlined on that. Commissioner Garrison, I think you are correct about your observation. There is no connectivity to Phase 3. However, if it is required and if the fire department wishes to, we can always have some emergency access, which we have expressed agreeability to do something if it is necessary. Right now, looking at the circulation and the length of roads, I don't think it is necessary, but we are open to something of that nature, which would be a win-win for everybody. Other than that, I think when we were going through Grosseto Ranch Road design, some of the challenges that we experienced was the original easements did not work because some of these easements were in major washers. So we had to go back and rethink the design, which is very typical when someone looks at a basic topographic features and just put something together. It is a little different from the final designs. But I think I want to mention that all parties involved in this has been working as a team, not only Vineyards group, but the rest of the people have been very cooperative. So I want to extend my gratitude to the city staff as well as all the owners who've been working with us on this project.
Right.
So with that, if there's any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Oh, Commissioner Garrison, questions?
Yeah, I've got just a couple. I was looking for basically a site plan. The vicinity map here doesn't really do justice to what I was looking for, and I didn't have a chance to go to the county GIS system today. Where this all drains down to this track G currently, is that, I would assume that's a settling pond or a retention basin of sorts? Down here in the bottom right corner?
Right now, this is a mound of dirt. It you know, obviously it looks like it is not a detention basin. The idea is we would do our sediment control, but down here is the major wash. So track G by itself is not going to be a detention basin.
So there's no retention of water from this site whatsoever?
No. So the drainage ordinance has. Let me step back. So when we are close to a major water body, there's the time of concentration that we take into account. For example, at what time would the major wash peak versus what time would the peak of the project will exit into the wash. So if there's a significant difference, by code it is allowed that we can exit the drainage as long as we can show that we are not impacting downstream conditions. And that is the concept that we are going to be using for this design.
Which wash, that wash right there, where does it cross Main Street? Where will this water come out?
Do you, Gary, by any chance, do you have the main?
Because I can't tell looking at this vicinity map which wash that impacts.
No, let me see. So approximately this is phase 3. The wash would be somewhere over here, and then it will cross, I believe, approximately to here. So there's a A dot crossing here and another A dot crossing here, and everything connects, and this whole area is a major wash.
So is that tied into Old Clarkdale Highway drainage, or is that going to come out over on Cactus? Because it's not going to get pushed all the way to right over here at Bing's, right? So it'll...
Right, no, Mr. Chairman, this is, Mr. Garrison, this is farther west than that. This is the ravine that goes down on the northwest side of the Kindra Heights subdivision, and that would be the one that goes down the Old Clarkdale Highway Willard drainage, I believe. This is not the one that goes over into Cactus. That's a separate ravine.
That's a separate wash.
Yeah, it does not connect or contribute to Old Town, if that was your question. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Kling, any questions of the applicant?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner DeSisto, any questions?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Vice Chair?
No, not at this time.
Okay. No, I don't either. I think you answered it. You'll be in the process of designing for the Growth Center Road. I know that we're all interested in that eventually. Let's go back to the, Gary, if you could put up the map again, sort of the area. Where is going to be your future development sites for this project? I know it's changed since the original approval.
There, in your packets, I believe, Commissioners, you have a map that looks like this.
There should be another map which is the master plan.
I believe that's in your
I
packet.
don't think so.
Okay. Oh, yes,
Yeah,
that is.
that's just phase 3. Yeah, I'm looking at, the overall. Yeah, this was the old original concept, I think.
This shows you, this was in the packet. It shows you the, no, it shows you.
Okay, yeah, 4, 5, and 6, okay. Yeah, and those are gonna be right adjoining those right up through there. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so phase 5 will continue on down, extension, and then phase 4 is back here, and a little bit of section up here. And then phase 6 is right below those existing 2 units. Okay, that's true. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, what he's asking for is that map, and we don't have that.
Yeah, no, that was the old original map.
Right, this
And
is an
gonna
outdated master development plan.
Yeah,
But yes, phase, and Krishan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe phase 4 would happen over towards the roundabout, and phase 5 would be farther
Yeah.
down Sangria.
right.
General idea?
And we do have a general face map that we have created. Obviously, the facing might change.
Sure.
And even the lot arrangements might change. But at every stage of phase, we've been updating the overall map. And I believe it should be with the city, but I would be happy to send you another map if
No,
that
this
helps.
is fine, I think, because it's quite different, at least this is your conceptual thing at this point, with the acreage that remains with this project, okay,
That's right.
right. And I understand the balance is back under with Mr. Grossetta's control again, for the balance of the property won't be developed
To the south of this
to the
phase,
south of
yes.
this, yeah, okay. Very good. Yeah, the south, that area is back to Mr. Grossetta. Will not be part of this overall project as originally conceived. Okay, fine. Good.
I still have a question.
Yes.
When this was originally proposed, there was going to be multiple uses on this land. There was going to be single family, there was going to be multifamily, and there was going to be high density. And I'm looking at this and I don't see anything in the way of multifamily, whether it's duplexes, threeplexes, fourplexes, or apartments. Is that all been removed from the development?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Garrison, that was in the original master development plan back in 2016, 2017
Right.
era. That was discussed as potential. However, there was language in there that said, depending on market conditions.
Yes.
So since then, all the units that have gone in so far, the 92 with phase 3 coming on, they would all be single-family detached.
And there could be some townhome, patio homes in the future, depending on the possibility in these other futures.
Yes, there's a possibility. I mean, when we get to every phase, we look at options, and depending on the land, sometimes there would be certain places
Right.
where different options could be proposed. But right now, we are taking one step at a time.
Wow.
That we believe was the change that we wanted to do from the previous overall planning. We still want to have overall planning, but then take one step at a time, looking at the market requirements as well as the site conditions.
And
Yes, go
to
ahead, sir.
continue on, I get the reason I'm asking is when this was originally proposed, and I know you don't have control over market, but at that point in time, this was being proposed as the billboard used to say, high 100s, you know, and then it became 225. Now it's 450 to 5 1/4, and you know, there's nothing in this at all that could be considered workforce housing, and I'm just nervous that we're continuing to bring more and more development in to the area and take up more land, and the options that we had originally believed were going to be part of the development in the way of higher densities and multi-use are going away and being absorbed by single-family residential that's priced out of the market of the people who really at the moment need the housing the most. And so that was my reason is I keep looking at this map and I'm only seeing single-family residential, and it's just creating more problems instead of helping us put ourselves on a path of creating some opportunities to take care of our issues. So that was my question.
Very fine. Do I have anybody in the public who'd like to address us on this issue? Mr. Davis, you have any further comment? All right. With that, I'll close the meeting to the public. Commissioner Garrison, your further comments?
No, sir, I've said my piece. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Commissioner Kling, your comments on this project?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner DeSisto, your comments on this project approval?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And Vice Chair?
I just want to say that I agree with Commissioner Garrison. I wasn't around for the original site plan approval, but I do think that this project is a real opportunity for mixing different modes of housing, especially townhomes. And I would really love, I'm not going to add it to the list, but I would really love in phase 6 for there to be some inclusion of some townhomes in there.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a good extension of what they've been building. Fits in right now. Again, we would encourage the possibility of some mixed use in the future if that works out. And again, market conditions and what can be marketed. You know, you've got to sell these things and develop them. But we do. We definitely need some workforce housing and some mixed-use options. That's all we're seeing right now is single-family residential. We've got some good proposed multifamily projects, but and the closest thing we come to a townhouse has been the Ridgeview on 12th Street, which are duplexes, basically fourplexes, but those are for rentals. But we'd encourage the owners in the future to really give consideration if that's possible. And with that, I will entertain a motion from the Vice Chairman, please.
I move to recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Vineyards at Cottonwood Phase 3, subject to the following stipulations. 1, the developer will provide the City of Cottonwood with an acceptable assurance that all required improvements will be completed as indicated by the city and outlined within Section 302.04, 500.01, and 500.03 of the City of Cottonwood Subdivision Ordinance prior to approval and recording of a final plat. Also required prior to approval of a final plat is a right-of-way acquisition and city approval of road design and engineer's estimates for the extension of Grosseto Ranch Road to Main Street. Financial assurances for the Phase 3 infrastructure shall include assurances for the extension of Grosseto Ranch Road eastward to the Vineyards property boundary and financial assurances from Grosseto Ranch Road, financial and building assurances for Grosseto Ranch Road to Main Street. 2, developer adheres to all Code Review Board comments dated April 8, 2021, and as may be provided during subsequent reviews. 3, the final plat must include all required information of submittal found in Article 4 of the city's subdivision ordinance. 4. Any comments generated from review of future submittals, including the final plat, shall be adhered to prior to approval and recording of the final plat. 5. All road and street heights, widths, cul-de-sac, and hammerhead turnaround distances shall meet the requirements in the 2018 International Fire Code Appendix D and the City of Cottonwood conditions. 6. Corner lots shall be at least 10% wider than typical interior lots per subdivision ordinance section 603.03. 7. Developers shall adhere to all applicable requirements outlined in the Vineyards at Cottonwood Master Development Plan, dated August 2016 and approved under Ordinance 622, the development agreement recorded on June 16, 2017, 2017-0030591, and any subsequent agreements between the developers and the city.
I'll second the Vice Chairman's motion. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Garrison,
Aye.
Commissioner DeSisto,
Aye.
Commissioner Kling,
Aye.
Vice Chair Maston,
Aye.
Chairman Williams.
Aye. Good luck. Look forward to it. Very fine. Our next order of business is Z21003, State Route 89A Annexation Area Rezoning. Mr. Davis, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. As you no doubt recall, earlier this year, we annexed about 11 square miles to the northeast of the city. The vast majority of that was in the Coconino National Forest. The very end of it is about 282 acres of private land in the Spring Creek Ranch area. The county zoning for all that area is RCU 2A, which is their rural residential zone with a 2-acre minimum lot size. State law requires a city annexing an area to adopt a new zoning in that area that is consistent with the county zoning that was there initially. In this case, we did not have a zone that had a 2-acre minimum lot size. We had different sizes. So state law also allows cities to extend the county zoning for a period of 6 months. And that gave us time to initiate a few months ago a new zone, which was the AR 87, which is our version of a 2-acre rural residential zone, very comparable to the RCU 2A in the county. So what we're proposing here is initiating a rezone for those 282 acres of the private land to the AR 87 zone. So it's a question of rezoning from the county 2-acre rural residential zone to the city rural residential 2-acre zone. And the National Forest land, which is the vast majority of this annexation area, would be zoned NF, which is our zone that is very restrictive, allows only those uses that are specifically permitted by the National Forest and planned and programmed by the National Forest. And we did a code amendment on that as well. It used to say, responding to the Prescott National Forest policies, we changed that because back in the old days it was only the Prescott National Forest on the west side of the river. Since then we've annexed on the east side of the river into the Coconino, so we just say National Forest at this point. So we're all clear with that. The private land, the 282 acres, is undeveloped. The only development in that area is towards the southwest edge of that property, where under the county, the current owners had developed a 2-acre lot size subdivision. They put in utilities and paved roads there, but no houses were built there. The only residence here is an old ranch just to the north of that. There's a family living on that ranch. Otherwise, there's no development currently in this location. That's a location that we've received an application for a PAD and general plan amendment for the Spring Creek Ranch. That's not part of what we're talking about here tonight. That's just a future application that we'll have to bring you at a later point. This is, again, just to rezone from the county 2-acre zoning to the city 2-acre zoning and the national forest zone as well. That concludes our presentation.
It's a technicality. Do we need to comply with the state law?
Right.
So
I did receive today a letter at 4:30 this afternoon, so there wasn't time to send it out. I'll read it into the record if that's all right with the chairman.
That's fine.
This is from Mark Kinney of Cornville. Says, to whom it may concern, as a longtime resident and property owner in Page Springs, I must make my opposition to the City of Cottonwood State Route 89A annexation and the proposed area rezoning known. It is imperative for the quality of life of current landowners and residents of the Verde Valley as a whole that any growth and development occur near Cottonwood itself to minimize the urban sprawl that plagues the western United States. Keep our natural spaces natural. This beautiful area should not be developed. The burden on the land and especially our groundwater is tremendous with this type of development. The impacts such growth and development would have on our natural resources are severe, and the impacts to traffic in this area will undoubtedly be severe also. Keep Cottonwood sprawl in Cottonwood. Let's keep our valley beautiful by limiting growth, managing it well when it does occur, and by giving our natural resources the respect we are obligated to. Regards, Mark Kinney. End quote.
Fine. Thank you. Do I have anybody from the public who would like to address us on this rezoning? Okay, not seeing any. I'm going to close the floor to the public. Commissioner Garrison?
No questions.
Commissioner Kling, your comments?
No, sir.
Commissioner DeSisto?
I don't have any questions.
Vice Chair?
No questions.
Right. All right. Yeah, this is our technical going through the process. We approved the change in our code previously, and the council's approved that. This is our recommendation to the council to give it the appropriate new 2-acre zoning, and it has nothing to do with any future or proposed development that may or may ever happen on this particular property.
That's correct, and this will go, Mr. Chairman, to the council on September 7th and September 21st.
Okay, very good.
That's what we've scheduled anyway.
Okay, very good. With that, Vice Chair, I would entertain a motion, if you will, please.
I move to recommend approval to the City Council for Z21-003 to change the zoning designation miles from RCU-2A, residential, single-family, rural, to NF, national forest, and AR-87, agricultural residential, subject to the following stipulations. 1. Any rezoning from AR-87 shall require a general plan amendment to be adopted through the required public participation process in order to plan for any greater uses or densities than those permitted in AR-87.
Okay, do I have a second to the Vice Chairman's motion?
Second.
Mr. Garrison approves, or seconds the motion, I'm sorry. Commissioner Garrison, yes, the Vice Chair's motion. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Garrison,
Aye.
Commissioner DeSisto,
Aye.
Commissioner Kling,
Aye.
Vice Chair Maston,
Aye.
and Chairman Williams.
Aye, the motion carries unanimously. Good. Onward to our last item of business, ZO 21008, amendment to the City of Cottonwood zoning ordinance for a 18C1 Light Commercial. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the next installment in our series of zoning ordinance amendments aimed at adding flexibility and removing obstacles to growth, particularly residential growth. In the C1 zone, this would allow multifamily uses to be a permitted use. Right now, if anybody wants to put in a multifamily development in C1, they have to come through this body to get a conditional use permit. In most cases, they would still need to come through this body to get a design review approval, but the question of whether or not the conditional use permit would be approved is not a question. They have more certainty if this is approved. We would also, with this proposal, permit residential units that are attached to businesses, and this would be subject to all current fire and building codes, of course, but the idea here is to have kind of a live work or live over your shop, kind of the way they used to do it in the old days, mixing the uses a little bit more. But single-family residential would remain a conditional use in C1 because there may be locations where a single-family detached house may not be appropriate or the best use of a commercially zoned property. So we're proposing that that remain conditional. They would have to come through this body to do that. Hotel motel, right now, it's not a permitted use in the C1 zone. We would propose that a small hotel motel, and that would be defined as 4 units or less, that would be permitted outright in C1 zoning. 5 units or more, a larger type of use, would be a conditional use. So it's still possible. They would just have to come through this body to get that approval. Incidental manufacturing, we have a provision in our zoning ordinance that says if you have a business, a retail business, you can have incidental manufacturing. You can make candles or do some sort of manufacturing of your craft there. What we require now, though, in our zoning ordinance is that 100% of what you make on the site would have to be sold on the site, which is kind of pre-internet. We wouldn't expect absolutely all of a manufactured product to be necessarily sold on the site. So we're proposing to remove that provision, or at least require that some of the products, that it not be all leaving the site, that some of the products be sold on the site. So that provides a little more flexibility. And also we have a restriction on the proportion of floor area. Again, that doesn't give a lot of flexibility. As long as it's incidental, as long as it's still a retail shop, then the amount of space used for the incidental manufacturing wouldn't be subject to a restriction. And finally, not finally, drive-in facilities for restaurants. Drive-in facilities for restaurants is a permitted use in the C2 zone, the heavy commercial zone. It's not mentioned in the permitted or conditional uses in C1. In the past, we have interpreted that as meaning, well, you would need to come through, if you have a C1 restaurant that you want a drive-in facility on, then it's a conditional use. And we've brought many conditional uses for drive-in facilities. But while we're working with C1 and making some changes in it, we thought this would be a good opportunity to codify that and make it clear that that is a conditional use in C1. So we would still bring conditional use permit applications for drive-in facilities at restaurants to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And finally, this is correcting a typographical error on our part. About a year and a half ago, we added a provision for keeping of livestock in C1 as a conditional use. And in a subsequent zoning ordinance amendment, I got a hold of a older version of the C1 code before that livestock had been put in. So when the city adopted the new C1 zone with the, I believe it was the RV park,
Right.
that was omitted. The livestock keeping was inadvertently omitted. So just to clarify that it is still a part of the code, we're correcting that and making it a part of this amendment to add it back in where it never should have been removed in the first place. So that is a brief summary of all that we're proposing here. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Garrison.
Yes, Chairman, thank you very much. I'm having a hard time seeing or thinking about a situation where a drive-in facility for a restaurant wouldn't be consistent with the C1 zone. Can you maybe explain why drive-in restaurants are a problem?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Garrison, did you say that you don't see why it would be a problem, or you just?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time understanding how that's a problem.
Okay, as opposed to C2. C2 zone is the heavy commercial zone, and that's kind of the highway commercial, big stores, big parking lots. C1 exists somewhat in that area, but it's also neighborhood residential as well. It's the strip coming up Main Street. It's Old Town. It's areas that may tend to be closer to residential areas where there's drive-through windows. There's noise. There's idling cars, which may be more appropriate in the highway commercial areas on the bypass or something like that, but on the Main Street area where it's near residences, it may be close to there, and to bring it to the Planning Commission for a conditional use permit allows us to notify everybody within 300 feet and say, hey, we're having a meeting on this. Anybody that has a problem can show up and discuss it, and it makes people aware of what's going on.
Can I just add for Commissioner Garrison, also with drive-in facilities in sort of lesser commercial districts, there's an element, at least for me, of protecting small local business. Obviously, there are exceptions. We have the Fogiel Brothers just around the corner, but most drive-in restaurants are franchises, and they sometimes are not even franchises. So it's saving a spot for a local business person in a way.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Commissioner Garrison, if I can also add, there was a Dutch Brothers in Tempe that had issues with their drive-through, and they got their CUP revoked after a couple of years because they couldn't control the traffic in the neighborhoods because it was put in right next to a residential area, and it was issued a permit, and it ended up actually being revoked because the neighbors, it caused so many problems. So I don't know of any issues here in Cottonwood, but it does allow city staff and the commission to revoke it if they don't keep traffic from backing up or causing neighborhood problems.
No, great, good, valid points all. I was having a hard time coming up with an understanding of how that would be a problem, but thank you.
Commissioner Kling, any questions of Gary?
I don't think so. I mean, based on the explanation that was just given, we want to keep that drive-through facilities for conditional use, basically to keep it on a case-by-case basis, right?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner DeSisto. Commissioner DeSisto, do you have any questions of Mr. Davis?
He might be muted.
Are you muted?
No?
Okay, no questions? All right. Vice Chair, any questions?
No questions.
No, I don't either. I think that was answered. Commissioner Garrison's point was, that was a good question, and well answered. I think with our C1, it does back up into some residential areas and these down through here a little bit. So that sounds good to me. Anybody in the audience want to comment on this change? If not hearing anybody, I'm going to close the floor to the public. Commissioner Garrison, your comments, sir.
The only comment I have, I guess, is that, some of these issues were topics that we covered when we had the joint meeting with the council, and they were concerns that were brought up during that conversation, and I just really appreciate that the staff is being in the moment and looking at things that we can do to make the process easier and more reasonable and helpful. So I appreciate the work that you've done to move that direction.
Good. Commissioner Kling, your comments? You must be muted. Are you muted?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I would agree with what Commissioner Garrison just said. I mean, I think it's all pretty straightforward and a good shift. So that's all.
Good. Commissioner DeSisto, your comments, please.
I agree with Commissioner Garrison.
Very good. Vice Chairman.
In the words of my chair, very fine.
Very fine. Very good. Yeah, I would agree. And yes, Gary, you have a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I have one more thing to add on our presentation here. The next. Something that's recently come up is we have a new bill that was passed, Senate Bill 1409, that says that before adopting any zoning ordinance change, a city has to consider the probable impact of the proposed zoning ordinance on the cost of constructing housing for sale or rent. And this is a zoning ordinance amendment, so we do have to consider that. As I mentioned before, this is something that is intended to add flexibility and not to put obstructions in the way of constructing residential property. In some cases, this may even reduce the cost of housing if it can be added to a commercial building, if if a developer can proceed to development of a multifamily development without the extra time and expense and uncertainty of going through a conditional use permit process. That's something I think that goes in the other direction than what the state law is concerned with. So just wanted to mention that to you and have the commission recognize that this would not add to housing construction costs.
Good. That's a good item to bring before us, I think. I'm not sure we're all aware of that new statute.
And we'll be doing that from now on as we bring zoning ordinance amendments to you. We do have to have that discussion, have that consideration, and
right.
And let everybody know.
Very good. Well, yes, the staff has very diligently been going through all of our codes over the last couple of years and updating and getting rid of some of these heinous requirements. Some of them are very just outdated kind of things, and this is just another good example of that. We continue to do that. Look forward to seeing more of this. We want to facilitate growth, good growth. We don't want to be a hindrance if we don't have to be, and some of these ordinances and code requirements can certainly get in the way of that. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval to the City Council the proposed amendments to Section 418 of the zoning ordinance.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Garrison seconds the vice chairman's motion. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Garrison,
Aye.
Commissioner DeSisto,
Aye.
Commissioner Kling,
Aye.
Vice Chair Maston,
Aye.
and Chair Williams.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. And we're on to our last item, which is actually a discussion item only tonight, concerning design guidelines for the Old Town area. Mr. Paget, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Williams, members of the commission. As you introduced, this is a design guideline update. And these are the result of a grant that the city received from SHPO last year. It's a 60% matching grant from SHPO, and that accounted for $12,000, and the match from the city was an $8,000 match. After we sent out the RFPs for a consultant, we chose the Motley Design Group out of Phoenix, who has worked with staff on coming up with these design guidelines. The first thing that the Historic Preservation Commission did was basically identify what is the area that we're talking about. What do we consider as Old Town? And so this is the map that we came up with, basically identifying what traditionally, historically, has been developed as Old Town. It was then further broken down into the different types of districts, the commercial character, a transitional character, and a residential area. The commercial area largely coincides with the Cottonwood Commercial Historic District, which is generally what we consider bridge to bridge, roughly, and in the Old Town area. And the goal is to preserve and reinforce the existing historical pattern. Those properties along Main Street are all zoned C1. This area in the commercial district is probably the least area where we have the least amount of conflict between our current code and developers when they're wanting to come in and develop. There's been historically a lot of surveys and inventory done of the commercial area, but we do want to encourage and promote that to retain its character, its historic character. The next, the transitional areas, yellow areas that are shown on the map here. It's roughly east and west along Cactus and First Street, parallel to Main Street, and then the commercial residential area heading a little bit west on Main Street. The goal in this area was to preserve the historically urban patterns and to find residential or light commercial uses that are compatible with the type of development that has occurred. Also, it acts as a good buffer between the commercial district to the residential neighborhoods. Most of these properties in the transitional character area are currently either zoned C1, the light commercial, or CR, commercial residential. Most of that is what you see heading west along the Main Street area. The goal of this transitional area is to retain the residential feel, yet to allow the upgrades of the residential property, and also encourage light commercial to be constructed or redeveloped in some of those properties. Much of this CR zone down here already has that blended feel, whereas traditionally it was mostly residential in nature with a few scattered commercial uses, but over time some of those residential uses have been transitioned into light commercial, neighborhood commercial uses.
What about the along Cactus and First Street? Now, those mainly residential, right? At least on the far side, or on the east or west side of those streets.
Are these two areas right
Yeah.
here? Is that what you're talking? They're all zoned C1. All of this yellow area is still zoned C1.
Oh, it's C1, all right.
Yes. And then this area down here is the commercial residential.
Right, okay, good, thank you.
Okay. So a lot of the end result of these design guides would sort of be blending those two, allowing, you know, that type of commercial residential use in those C1 areas. A lot of those, like I said, are already developed with a residential, you know, structure on there. Sometimes the nature of where that structure was developed, how it was done, the size of the parcel, the location will limit its ability to transition to a commercial use. And that's more on a lot by lot individual basis. Then we got into the residential areas, the blue on the map. Those are zoned, currently they're zoned R2. The future development could allow for limited densification in response to, you know, housing needs of the community. This area is probably the roughest area that we have as far as determining. We have a current zoning ordinance, yet we have people coming in and they're wanting to develop and have come up with creative ideas, but we're stuck with that zoning ordinance that doesn't allow a lot of thinking outside of the box. In our current zoning ordinance, you're required to have a minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet. Very few parcels in the Old Town area meet that requirement. So right from the get-go, we have a conflict with the type of development that is being requested and looked at versus what is presently zoned out there now. So like I said, most of the parcels do not meet the R2 standards. Should somebody choose to opt in to this special planning area, they have the right either to remain with the current zoning code, or they can opt in and choose to develop based on these more flexible standards based on the size of the parcels and the historical patterns of Old Town. Currently, like I said, minimum lot size is 7,500 square feet. That would be for single family or multifamily. Within these design guidelines, should they choose to opt in to these, and that's totally up to them, a single family dwelling could be constructed on a parcel of 2,500 square feet or greater. And if they wanted to construct a guest house, they would have to have a parcel of 4,000 square feet or greater. In the R2 areas, if they were wanting to develop a multifamily, they would need to have a parcel of 5,000 square feet or to be able to construct 2 dwelling units, which more coincides with the R2 multifamily zoning. One of the areas that we looked at is if we are allowing, you know, the smaller parcels and for somebody to construct a house, perhaps a guest house. Currently our height limitation is 35 feet in the residential areas and commercial areas. This would limit, in the residential areas, the maximum height to be 25 feet. So, like I said, they would have to opt in to this special planning area. One of the difficulties created by the state legislature is Prop 207. When that was enacted, it limited the abilities for cities to create overlay districts. It became very hard to, the limitations on the city, we could not diminish if there was any appearance of diminishing value to other properties. So along with the opt-in requirement, they would have to sign a Prop 207 waiver that they understood that these new standards were compatible with what they were proposing and the development that was allowed.
Yes,
Yes.
Commissioner.
Before you go any further, could you back up one slide, please? So that provision only relates to the residential character area and not the transitional?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So this does not change any of the uses that are allowed in C1, the commercial residential, or in the R2 areas. We're not looking at changing any of the types of uses that currently require design review or a conditional use permit, and those uses are remaining. Nothing is changing in that aspect. The smaller parcels would allow additional flexibility. And we would hope to see a lot more of the residential mix, like was mentioned earlier, and the C1 is allowing that, live-work type process. This would be able to bring residential development and residents closer to where they may live, work, and shop, all within the same area. Should be, staff is requesting direction from the commission to proceed with the design guideline update as proposed. We have, and there is a sort of a past schedule and a future schedule. You can see we've been discussing this at length with the Historic Preservation Commission. We had a public meeting that mostly was attended by the commercial property owners. Historic Preservation Commission has seen 2 drafts. This is the second draft that you are looking at. We discussed this with the council last week at a work session. So far, there's been good feedback wanting us to move forward with these design guidelines. After tonight, any comments that we receive from you, anything from council, the public will be taken back to the HPC for their final recommendation to the Planning Commission. Will return in September with a recommendation from the Planning Commission. At that point, you would make a motion and a vote with your recommendation then to council, that would then have their 2 readings of the ordinance. And then tentative guideline would have all this done the end of October, making it effective November 20th.
Good.
Yes.
There's a phrase that shows up in the text a couple times saying, new construction may reference but should not mimic historical styles. It comes up thrice. And I guess that to me seems a little nebulous for a code. Like, what does that mean in practice? And I'm just suggesting maybe you guys should say what that means. It kind of gives an example. It says new construction, like if you go to, I want to make sure I'm taking the right place. It's under all of them, but if you just go to commercial building design guidelines, so that's 6C, it's under architectural expression. It says new construction may reference but should not mimic historical styles of architecture present in the streetscape now or historically, and should be clearly differentiated as a modern building. If I was an applicant, I wouldn't necessarily know what clearly differentiates a modern building. I'm not sure what that means, and I think it maybe should be clarified.
Okay. I can understand the blending of those terms there, so we'll work on that.
I would second that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing
I think the intent behind that is that new development to made looked old.
I think I know they don't want it to look like Disneyland. I think that's what people are avoiding. They don't want it to look like Wild West land, but I think maybe we just, it's kind of opaque.
Okay. Noted.
Commissioner Garrison.
Yeah, I've got a question, and without getting too deep, the changes that we just proposed going to council on allowed uses, new uses in C1. How does that differentiate from what's existing in C2, or CR? Did we not just basically turn C1 into CR?
I think with allowing some of the residential use, that did bring the two of those closer together. I think the C1 traditionally has been more the storefronts, where the CR has been more of the residential character. And so there is some blending, yes, of the C1 and the CR.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Commissioner Garrison, I'd like to add that a lot of the basis for this and what this is aiming to do is to make development easier on some of these undersized parcels in the Old Town area, whether it be C1, CR, or the residential areas. A little bit of comparison that we can do with it is within our arts and entertainment district. We have provisions that allow reduced setbacks, reduced landscaping, those sorts of reduced requirements that you'd find in other areas. So this is a larger scale, but it is a lot like that.
Okay, thank you. I attended the meeting, and I was really disappointed in the lack of public participation when that presentation was made. It was, I think, what you're proposing and what we're looking at really can have a very large impact on how we continue to grow this Old Town area, yet preserve what we have as far as the character of the Old Town area. So I think this is more important than most people understand until they actually go to get their permit to build on their lot in the future and realize that the rules have changed and they maybe should have participated a little stronger to begin with. But one of the discussions we had during the meeting with the council was this idea that this character area in general might actually at some point fall under the purview of the HPC for design review. And I'm wondering if the staff is moving forward with that premise or not.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Garrison, in my update at the beginning of the meeting, that's where I mentioned a joint work session with this commission and the Historic Preservation Commission. Hopefully we'll try and do that in September or October, sometime in the next couple months, to get both bodies in the room to discuss that.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
Also, you were referencing the attendance at the public meeting that we had. We are sending out, they'll be going out tomorrow, a notice to every property owner in the Old Town area, in the commercial, the transitional, and the residential areas, noticing them of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting next week. So we are trying to get the word out one additional step beyond what we did for the first public meeting.
No, and that was in no way meant to say that you hadn't done your job. I'm just disappointed in the lack of participation we have with things that can tend to be very important to the future of this community, and unless it directly impacts them today, nobody seems to care. And I think it's really important that people participated in that action. So no, I appreciate everything you've done, and you've gone over and above and continue to do so, but I just wish we could figure out a way to get more public. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I just add something maybe for the newer commissioners about what Jim said perfectly well, but just go a little deeper on Prop 207. That's Arizona's version of the post-Kelo economic takings Supreme Court case. And what it basically says is there can be no government action in derogation or diminution of private property rights. So in order to let people opt into this scheme, we would get from them a waiver saying they acknowledge that they will get some benefits from participating in this status, but also that they are covenanting, they're promising that they won't bring a legal action for a claimed reduction in property value later on, should they change their mind, because this will be an opt-in that will be recordable and run with the land that they're binding as the owner.
Yeah. What about, when does a property owner have to, is there a time limit when they can opt in, or is there, or they just can do that at any time when they get ready to redevelop, they can opt in at that
I think
point?
at any time, they could, usually it would be at a time that they're wanting to redevelop.
So there's no, you have to do it by December 31st kind of thing involved. Okay, that's fine. Vice Chair, any comments, questions?
I think that I've covered everything that I could.
Okay. Commissioner Kling, any comments on this design guidelines?
Not especially. I do want to thank you for kind of outlining that Prop 207. I wasn't terribly familiar with it, so that does help. I think, anything we can do to bridge that gap. I really felt like with that last project that came through the bookstore that was supposed to be an Airbnb, there was just a disconnect in expectations. We were all kind of like, we expected more in terms of the historicness of preserving that building, but they really didn't know, there was no direction with it. And I feel like collectively, us and them, it was something we could have bridged, but, we just weren't all articulating it properly. So I'm hoping in the future we can bridge that, and with some of this, it'll come together a little easier, and we can start, looking at parking and some of the other things that we need to do down there and preserving this culture.
Very good. Commissioner DeSisto, any comments, sir?
Not at this time. I'm just appreciative for this information. It definitely helps me to understand more about the community goings on. Thank you.
Okay. I think this is a really good start to add some flexibility down there, because there's just a lot of non-conforming uses compared to our current zoning codes, and we want to see this continue to develop in a orderly manner and in a good manner, and redevelop rather than just going to become a derelict area, particularly in the residential area. I think this should help maybe prompt some continued redevelopment in that area, which would be very useful. So, yes, I think this is good. I would strongly encourage you to keep going, and we'll look forward to our joint meeting, and then also recommendation for this to go to council.
You will see this next month, and we'll incorporate comments and wording in that to address.
Yes, please. Yes. I think that's a good comment. All right. I think that covers that. We don't have any suggested topics for future meetings, so entertain a motion for adjournment.
I motion to adjourn.
I second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you.